this episode, I'm going to talk about rehearsals, how to prepare for them, how to manage them. After having studied the music and prepared myself for the rehearsal cycle with the musicians and the ensemble, I then think about what the best way will be to manage the rehearsal. I think about what parts of the music need special attention and which ones are easy enough for the ensemble that we probably can just run it a few times across the entire cycle and it'll be ready for the performance. If I'm working with the professional or semi-professional group, typically there's not very many rehearsals, 2, maybe 3 before a concert. And that last one typically is more of like a dress rehearsal. So what I will do is I will take the length of each piece of music and double that. And that's how much time I try to spend in each rehearsal on that piece of music, not counting the run through in the dress rehearsal. The areas where I adjust that are if it's a very difficult piece of music or something that has a lot of technical passages I know we're going to have to spend extra time on, then I figure out which pieces I can take time away from. I actually will then take that schedule, I will put it on paper with time, the time next to it. If we start rehearsal at 7:30 and the first piece of music is going to be 10 minutes, I'll put 7:30 to 7:40, that piece of music for 10 minutes, then go to the next piece of music. And I have a clock or a manager may help me to be able to stay on schedule. But that is with the groups where you have a limited amount of practice time, where spending time on the technical aspects and the actual rehearsing of the music is not as likely. If you're working with more of like the student or community group, where you're having anywhere from 6 to 10 rehearsals, you have an entire cycle to work on this music. So in that case, what I like to do is, first of all, I take the total number of rehearsals and I subtract 3. So if I have 8 rehearsals, I will subtract 1 rehearsal for the first rehearsal because that's where I'm sight reading the music. I subtract 1 for the last rehearsal because that's the dress rehearsal. And then I will subtract 1 more, which is the rehearsal right before the dress rehearsal, where we really should be at the point to kind of see how are we doing, to really assess things. So if I have 8 rehearsals in all, and I subtract those 3, I have 5 to actually work with in a rehearsal kind of setting. I then will take every piece of music on the concert, make my decision of, is this a piece that's going to need rehearsing or is this a piece that just needs to be run a few times? If it's stuff that needs to be actually worked on, then I go through and divide the piece into 5 sections. I find good phrase breaks, close to equal amounts, and those sections I assign to each rehearsal. I then send that schedule out to the musicians. Obviously, sometimes things change as we go and I update them. We've got to have a schedule on this or we're behind on this one, and I let them know. But what it does is it gives them goals. Now they're not just sitting down going, I need to rehearse everything. They're going, these measures are going to be worked on next week. That's what I'm going to look at and be prepared to do. I don't expect them to be ready to play anything else in those pieces of music that we have not come to yet. They just need to be prepared with what I've assigned for that week, and they need to maintain what we've already worked on. Every once in a while, I'll have weeks where I get a little ahead of schedule, and then we'll jump back and run through something we've previously worked on to make sure that they don't lose it. As I approach each rehearsal, a day or 2 ahead of time, I will then go through and look at the sections I've assigned. I will determine how much time I think I need to spend on each of those sections and make sure that I stay within my allotted time frame for rehearsal and kind of just move things around until it works. Sometimes you don't get the opportunity to spend as much time on everything you'd like, so you have to go into the rehearsal knowing that you may have to touch on that section again another week, or you just may have to give them extra information when they're practicing at home of what they need to continue to do to make it better and better. But I then take that schedule, I figure out how much time to spend on each, and I assign it to a time slot, just like I would on the professional group, but in this case, it's only on a section of each piece I've assigned for that week. We then get to the rehearsal. I will run that section that I've assigned when we get to that piece of music, all the way through whatever the section is. But before you start tearing it apart and rehearsing it, give them that bird's eye view. If the schedule doesn't allow it, it doesn't allow it. But ideally, give them the bird's eye view before you start working on the section. When I'm going to be working with a soloist or a choir or any additional ensemble that's collaborating with my ensemble, I usually try to make sure that they do not come to the first rehearsal. Sometimes it's inevitable, and if you're in a short rehearsal cycle, you just have everybody there all the time. But I try to allow the orchestra or concert band an opportunity to rehearse the music by themselves first. If you've only got 2 or 3 rehearsals, then that choir or soloist is probably coming to that second or obviously the third rehearsal if it's a dress rehearsal. If you have a long cycle, then they're probably not going to come until the last couple rehearsals of the cycle, and you've definitely had enough time at that point to put the music together. But you have to take that into consideration, because the amount of time you spend on that piece of music that includes the soloist or the choir or the collaborative group is going to have to be longer than what you might spend on it if it was just your ensemble by itself. Because people are getting used to your conducting, they're getting used to being with the ensemble, they're getting used to the room, they're getting used to performing with each other, you're working on balance, and you're also balancing the management of the personalities that are involved, the multiple directors that are now coming together to make all of this a reality. You have to take that into consideration and realize that it's not just going to be, oh, it's a 3-minute piece of music, so 6 minutes and we're done. Most likely on those pieces that include those extras, you're going to have to spend more time. If it's a group or a soloist you work with frequently, then they may be comfortable enough with you and the ensemble that you can work at a little bit of a faster pace than if it was a group that is rarely used to performing with you and rehearsing with you. You also have to take into consideration it's not just your interpretation. If you're working with a soloist, you're going to have to turn and speak to them for a moment. Hopefully you've done prep work with them separately so that you're already both on the same page. But once you get in front of the ensemble and in the space, one or both of you may start to make some different decisions. I will tell you from experience that when you deviate from the schedule and you have multiple people that are collaborating with you on a concert, you are opening the door to a lot of frustrated guests who feel like they are not getting their fair share of what you promised or a percentage of what is compared to what someone else got. You need to be aware of that. And you need to be firm with your decisions on how much time someone gets, unless it is just a desperate situation that you have to put a little bit more time at it. But you have to be conscious of what other people may be thinking about that at that point and adjust properly and politely. It sometimes helps to have a stage manager or a timekeeper or somebody with you that can help keep it moving along so that your relationship with the performers stays as a performance relationship and not the management relationship. Thank you for watching. For more great videos, subscribe to the Maestro Fox YouTube channel. To learn more about the Maestro, visit StephenAllenFox.com.